Today on Trad Takes, let's talk about unity and coexistence. And also, I respond to a listener who complains that women never take responsibility. All this and more on Trad Takes. Welcome to episode 18 of Trad Takes, as always hosted by the Traditionalists. Thank you for joining me yet again. As always, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment. I may start next week's conversation with it. Again, it'll be a shorter episode today to leave me more time to record Pope Leo XIII's Satis Cognitum encyclical for Catholic Family Podcast, so every minute I spend on this podcast, I spend not recording Satis Cognitum, but my producer requires that I get at least one video out a week. So, there we are. Last week's video had many comments, mostly very nice agreements, which are appreciated, but they also don't make for great conversation. Let me just sit here and pat myself on the back by reading nice comments is not my style. So the one I'm going with is from Driftless7134. In response to last week's discussion on men allowing feminism to happen by vacating our vocation, Driftless quotes Janet R.'s comment, quote, "Why didn't Adam be a man and say no?" End quote, which I agreed with. But Driftless adds, "Why don't women take responsibility for their actions?" After getting feedback from me and another commenter, he adds, "I'm 35. In every situation I've experienced or come across, the man takes responsibility and the woman never does. The woman who posted the quote above," referring to Janet R., "clearly displays this." So the first thing I'd say, thank you for the comment, by the way, comments, Driftless. The first thing I'd say is that this line of argument quickly cycles into absurdity. Men are ultimately responsible for feminism. You reply to that with, well, women never take responsibility. And the answer is, well, that's the point. Men are responsible. And then you argue, well, women are never responsible for anything. Right? It kind of circles down the rhetorical toilet. And your anecdotal experience through 35 years of life seems to be that women shun responsibility. And I'm sorry if that's been your experience. My experience has been very much the opposite, for what it's worth, but looking at it from your perspective, the argument I'm making is that men, by our nature, are responsible beings. That's how God made us. It is a predominantly masculine trait to be responsible. And even assuming that I agree with you that women should take more responsibility, well, isn't that sort of like wishing that women should be able to lift heavier things? Or that women should be able to work on oil rigs just as well as men? It's sort of wishing against the order of how God established differences between the sexes. And of course, that's to say nothing about my experience, which is women frequently take responsibility for things, and I'm sorry if that hasn't been the case for you. Of course, women bear some responsibility for feminism, but men bear just as much, if not more. And as a man, I am okay taking responsibility for it. Not just because it's true, but because it's in my very nature. Thanks for the comment, Driftless, and thanks for listening. So today's musings are going to be a little less political in nature. A couple things made me want to talk about unity, and specifically what Catholic unity actually means. One reason for that is I'm in the middle of recording Pope Leo XIII's Satis Cognitum, which is on church unity. And even though it was written well over a century ago, it's extraordinarily relevant. One might say divinely inspired to be relevant to our current time. And secondly, I continue to hear frequently from traditional Catholics and even well-meaning Novus Ordo followers, why can't we all get along? Why can't we all just be united in the traditional faith? Why can't we overlook all of these minor squabbles? And on the surface, this sort of makes sense, but the devil is in the details. Quite literally in this case, actually. I mentioned this briefly on the 2 Men in a Garage live stream with Kevin, but I think it bears a little bit of a deeper dive. Catholic unity, one of the 4 marks of the Church, and parenthetically, as Pope Leo XIII says, possibly the greatest or most fundamental of the 4 marks. Catholic unity is unity of faith. What this means is not that we're all united in friendliness. It doesn't mean that we all get along. I mean, look at history. Catholic nations waged war against each other. Different religious groups, like the Jesuits and Dominicans, have always been fighting about many things. In the sidebar, I heard a funny joke. What's the difference between the Dominican order and the Jesuit order? Well, Dominicans were founded primarily to fight the Albigensians, and the Jesuits were in large part founded to combat Protestantism. So what's the difference between the Dominicans and the Jesuits? Well, when's the last time you heard from an Albigensian? I'm sorry. If you don't like my humor, you should stop listening to me. Anyway, unity of faith obviously does not mean everyone is nice to each other and we all get along. Unity of faith means that we all hold, completely and without exception, all of the dogmas of the faith taught by Christ and his church. That is true unity. So, why Catholics can't have unity with the Novus Ordo is obvious. The Novus Ordo teaches that all religions can be paths to God, and that even false religions contain some good or some truth. And that is obviously false. That is against what Christ and his church have taught through nearly 2,000 years and 260 popes. So we cannot believe that. Therefore, we cannot have unity with the Novus Ordo because we do not share the same Catholic faith, whole and entire. So why can't the Sede Vacantists and the SSPX, the Society of St. Pius X, simply unite and provide a stronger force to oppose the Novus Ordo? We are all traditional Catholics, after all. Well, again, unity of faith gets in the way. The SSPX believes that we can and should oppose and disobey a true pope. That is also against what Christ and his church have taught through nearly 2,000 years and 260 popes. True Catholics cannot be in unity with the SSPX because they do not hold to that tenet of the true faith. And if they do, then they are by their own proclamation schismatics. So we do not share the same Catholic faith. We cannot have the unity of faith with the SSPX. The Fraternity of St. Peter, the FSSP, and similar conservative Novus Ordo groups are probably the closest, honestly, to holding the entire true faith. Unlike the Society of St. Pius X, they at least hold the true Catholic teaching on the nature of the papacy. And unlike the Novus Ordo, many of the individuals who are part of these groups do not personally embrace, do not personally believe the heresies of Vatican II. But they are still united with the head of that heresy, and therefore implicitly accept and legitimize the Novus Ordo heresy. Therefore, we cannot be in true unity with them either. Now, is this sad and is this annoying? Yeah, of course it is. How nice would it be to have a united front of all traditionalists? It would be super nice. But until the SSPX embraces the true faith whole and complete with regards to the primacy of the papacy, we true Catholics cannot be united in faith with them. No more than the Church over the past 1,000 years can claim unity with the Greek Orthodox Church. Until the FSSP and other conservative Novus Ordo groups formally denounce the Vatican II heresy and the man leading that false church, we cannot be in unity with them. Now, focusing in on true Catholics, the Catholics who hold the true faith whole and entire. There are obviously factions and groups within these true Catholics. Like the Dominicans and Jesuits, these groups disagree, sometimes very strongly, with each other on things like the thesis or the 1955 Holy Week, etc. But those are opinions and not matters or dogmas of the faith. Therefore, as much as it might not look like it, groups like the CMRI and the Roman Catholic Institute are truly united, because they, along with all true Catholics, profess the same faith, whole and complete, as taught by Christ and his church. Would it be nice if there was less fighting? Sure. But it's not likely, or I'd argue even possible, until we have a true pope to unite us, especially in today's Twitter world. So that's unity. It may not feel like unity, but the Catholic faithful do still have true unity. Now, this is very different from coexistence, which is the being able to live with and get along with others who do not have that unity of faith. Again, on its surface, this can be a good thing. We can exist alongside other people who are Novus Ordo or SSPX without fighting or killing each other. But there must be a tension there. We cannot be happy that other groups do not have the true faith. We cannot give equal rights to those religions or those sects that do not have the true faith. That is liberalism. We cannot believe that those religions or sects which do not hold the true Catholic faith are pathways to heaven. That is the same error of ecumenism by which the Novus Ordo apostatized. So in closing, we as Catholics cannot have unity with the Novus Ordo and affiliated groups, regardless of how conservative they are, because we cannot align with heresy. We cannot have unity with the SSPX because they do not hold the full Catholic faith regarding the nature of the papacy, and if they do, then they are in schism. And this isn't because we don't want to be united with them. It's because it is literally impossible to be united with them by the very definition of church unity. And then the other takeaway is that even if true Catholic groups have visible disagreements and fights and Twitter wars, we are still in actuality united in unity of faith. We have the unity that matters, that unity which is the first mark of the church. And I do think we could do with less fighting and fewer online battles, of course. But the important thing is that the unity is still there, regardless. Anyway, I am going back to continue recording Satis Cognitum. I suggest go ahead and read it if you don't want to wait the week or two it's going to take me to finish. It's an excellent encyclical from the great Pope Leo XIII and stands up well in today's world. That sound means we're all out of time for today. Please like, share, and subscribe to The Traditionalists. Ring that bell if you want to get the notification when a video comes out. And do feel free to leave a comment. You never know if yours will be the one that I read and react to next week. This is Eric signing off. God bless you all, and God bless these United States of America.